How did you get started in blogging?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
So I'll try and give you the 1 minute or 2 minute version of this story. But after college, my undergrad, I moved back home to go to grad school and found myself very lonely Pete, looking for things to do, occupy my time. I'd been listening to podcasts, so I was like, oh, maybe I'll start a podcast. Maybe I'll start a blog. I had no idea what a blog was. It just sounded cool. So I did. That was in 2009, mid 2009. And fast forward like 2 or 3 years, I did some blogging. I like personal diary, online stuff, a bluegrass blog because I like bluegrass music. And over the next couple of years, I probably started, I've started over 45 different blogs or businesses since 2009. It was a lot of fun. Most of which
diversified.
Well, a lot of that was shiny object syndrome, which is a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
Most of those failed miserably. A lot of those were money-making e-commerce adventures. Most of them. Maybe 2 that actually worked fairly well. So this will get into your question a little bit. I had a job in accounting. I was a CPA. I was a very good employee, I guess. I left that for a startup job where I could do more side hustle stuff and get like a salary and benefits. It was like the best of both worlds. Like I work 20 hours a week and get salary, but I can also blog for 20 hours a week. Look, wife, this is great. So we moved, my wife and I, our kids, took the job. I got 1 paycheck and then they folded. So this is after we moved and didn't know what to do. So at this point, we have a little bit of money saved up. I was in personal finance for a little while. I've done pretty well with that. So I sat with my wife. We had a little bit of wine and a little bit of tears. And we thought through, do we want to move again? I'll go back to accounting. Or should I give this whole full-time entrepreneurship a thing? We decided to do that, or I decided to do that. And the only thing I could think of to talk about was digital marketing. Content creation, online business, blogging, podcasting, YouTubing. It's the one thing that I keep coming back to since 2009. It's like what I'm enthused about. It's what I'm fired up about. It's what I love talking about. So I was like, I'm just going to do it. I have no idea what it's going to look like. I don't know if it's going to be a blog. I don't know if it's going to be whatever. So I called up my friend Bobby Hoyt, shout out, MillenniumMoneyman.com. And I was like, can I just Skype with you for like an hour? Like you're making like great money and you do it really ethically and you're transparent and you have an awesome blog. Like, can I just Skype with an hour? Like, tell me how to do it. He's like, of course, let's go. So I did that, had a lot of fun. I reached out to Michelle Schroeder Gardner and I was like, you make a lot of money and you're really great and I'm really impressed by you. Can we just Skype for an hour, please? And she's like, yeah, sure, whatever. So after like 3 or 4 of these, I'm like, this is a lot of fun. I'm enjoying myself. I think they call this podcasting. So I'm going to keep doing it. And so 20 months, 19 months later, that's what I'm doing. So I run the Do Even Blog podcast and the Do Even blog and YouTube channel, although not a whole lot anymore, and a little bit of speaking and interviews.
You have a lot of really great content coming out. And you are across a lot of different platforms, right? So like we talked a little bit about how like once like I wanted to blog and I thought this is gonna be really great, but then I'm thinking, oh my gosh, there are so many people out there doing this and they're doing it better than I could ever do it. And I just got paralyzed by this comparison of so many people are better than me. Yeah. Do you ever face that? And if somebody is thinking about starting a blog or thinking about starting a podcast or branching out from one medium to the next, what advice would you have for those people?
Okay. I'm about to this is going to be good value right here for everybody watching.
We're going to drop this.
I've been waiting on somebody to ask me this question for a long time.
And I did it. Best question ever.
I have 2 answers.
All right, I'm ready.
I'm going to spoil the second one, else I'll forget about it and never come back to it. So 2, I want to talk about the different platforms. And I'm going to spoil it right now. Audience. Doesn't matter the platform. Building an audience is everything. We'll come back to that.
All right.
So let's talk about self-doubt or imposter syndrome or over-comparison. I'm not an expert. I'm a newbie person. Everyone else is doing this. I don't think I could do this. Or that can take a lot of different forms. Not nary a day. I don't know if people actually say that anymore. Nary a day goes by where I don't get some sort of email that includes the words, not an expert, brand new. Like there's this weird non-confidence thing, which is totally legit and everybody goes through it for sure. But part of me wants to scream at these people in a very positive way, not yell at them. But there are a few different reasons why I think I'm not going to say invalid. Again, everybody does this. I still have massive self-doubt, by the way, like every day, totally. But I've learned through this podcast that there's absolutely no need to be an expert ever at all, period, for the rest of your life. You can add value in so many ways, and being an authority, being the expert, being the know-it-all, being the super experienced person, right? Like those things are just not necessary requirements to help people. And okay, so 2 FinCons ago, FinCon Dallas, Darren Rouse got on stage, he keynoted, and he talked about avatars, like a picture of our target reader, their demographics, their characteristics, their wants, their desires, that sort of stuff. And then he went on to talking about the transformation that your audience is seeking. If you run a photography blog, they want to get better at photography by not spending a lot of money, by doing it with the camera that they already have, with their iPhone. Doesn't matter. Everybody's looking for that transformation. For me, I have a lot of bloggers who would like to start making side income, who would like to quit their jobs, go full-time income, get speaking gigs, reach more people, change the world, whatever that'd be. They're seeking a transformation, and there's a lot of different roles one can play in that. So going back to like travel or anything really, the authority figure, the teacher, the all-knowing, the experienced person, that's just one role. Another one could be a friend who's like literally undergoing that same transformation right now. This is kind of how I started the Do You Vlog podcast, by the way. Like I wasn't a millionaire blogger before I started this. I don't have all the answers. I don't ever pretend to know all the answers. What I am is a friend who's also along the same journey as a bunch of my readers, maybe just one step ahead in a lot of cases, and a journalist. So I love this role. This is something that you are really good at as well, like just utilizing interview skills, which is a real thing, in order to bring out the awesome wisdom and knowledge from the experts. You don't have to be an expert.
Right.
You can be the journalist or the friend or the professor who does a bunch of research and can turn data into sentences that make sense to people. Or I don't know. You can go look at Darren's keynote. You can see like all these relationships and stuff. But that's what I tell everybody who comes to me with, I have my own self-doubts. Like, I don't think I could publish that blog post, or I don't think I could do this, or I don't think I could do that, based on the fact that I'm new. I'm not an expert. XYZ. I'm like, there are so many people you can help. Just add value any way you can. You'll figure it out over time, whether you're a blogger, podcast, or YouTuber. Doesn't matter. You figure that out. It's okay.
Yeah, I had a
You don't have to be an expert.
I had a friend once tell me I would rather learn from the person who doesn't know everything because I feel like I'm learning with them.
It's relatable.
Right. And it's learning it with them and asking the questions that you want to know and knowing the right questions to ask.
Totes.
And I was like, wow, you mean that I don't have to be this expert. I don't have to be perfect at what it is that I wanted to learn about, because we're all learning in it together. And I love that approach, and I love that. And okay, so you're going to say 2 audience.
Yeah. Well, 1.5. That was 1. I'm going to get to 2. This one's really quick. It won't take a whole lot of time. Another thing, I was just talking to this guy, Alex, last week, who came to my podcast. Another thing is the comparison trap, especially with new bloggers who they start blogs, or even podcasters really, but they start blogs because they know other awesome bloggers that they want to be like. I want to be the next Pat Flynn. I want to be the next Paula Pan. I want to be the next Bethany. It doesn't matter. No, you're never going to be it. Anybody, those watching at home, you're never going to be the next fill in the blank. You can't, ever. That's silly. And when you think about it logically, of course, it makes sense. You're never going to be that person exactly. But when it comes to like day to day, we're trying to grow our blogs, we're trying to grow our businesses, we fall into the same, I'm not going to say traps, but we fall into the same patterns that are like what everybody else has already done, even though we don't realize it. Everybody comes in, listen to my podcast, and then like a year later, I'll get an email like, oh, these Pinterest strategies are so great. I'm going to get a lot of traffic because that's exactly what worked for Rosemary Groner or somebody like that. And I can't help but think like, it very much could. I'm glad you listened. Thank you. I'm glad I got some value, whatever. But that's not exactly going to work for you. It might help. You might discover something better, but you're never going to be the famous bloggers that you look up to. You're probably not even going to grow in the same way that they did 3 months from now, 3 months ago, 3 years ago, that sort of thing. So again, new bloggers, they have that comparison thing all the time. Let Bethany and I be a voice of reason that you're never going to be those bloggers. And what worked for them may or may not work for you. The best you can do is try a bunch of things and implement and then be okay in your own skin, in your own voice, doing your blog.
I love that. I love that so much because oftentimes, if I can relate to this in a certain way, like oftentimes people will think, I want to be like you when I speak because you're like so energetic and you're so like outgoing and blah, blah, blah. And I'm not saying that, and I'm like, not everybody's like that.
Here,
like,
take my Bethany pill, and then it happens. Easy.
Could you imagine if we were all like over caffeinated, screaming people that were all the same person? Like,
I'd be asleep right now.
It would be horrible. Like, it would be the worst thing. I will be the first to say that would be the worst thing ever. But finding the way that you normally talk or communicate, or what you do well, like maybe you're a great storyteller or you're a great interviewer, like you said, or something like that, and finding like how you would say something and not how, this person would say something. I love that so much.
And it's hard.
It's hard.
It's super hard.
It's so hard. Oh, it's so hard.
Yeah. Okay, you want to move on to number 2?
Yeah, let's do it.
Audience.
Yeah.
So, different mediums. Bloggers who've been thinking, this is like the most obvious scenario. Bloggers who are like, I've been thinking about trying me some podcasting, or I'd really love to get into YouTube. I hear YouTube's the big thing for 2020 or whatever. And I think all that stuff is great. Or here's another one that you don't see as often. People using their email list and sending email list only content. Like, I didn't do a blog post, I didn't do a podcast. I'm literally just writing an email. That is my content. Maybe it's a little bit personal. Maybe it's a little bit how to. Maybe it's educational. It doesn't matter. My theory, and this is what is going to set me apart. Ready?
So excited.
I'm either going to be an idiot 3 years from now, or I'm going to be like
genius millionaire,
the rock star who predicted this exactly.
I already think you're a rock star. So
okay, good.
You're on your way.
I hope you're correct. So
always
this year and in coming years, I think more than ever before, people are going to start to realize that it really doesn't matter where you reach people. Some people are better at different mediums. Some people just love writing and they want to blog, and that's great. Some people may be terrible at it and would just prefer to riff on audio for an hour. Some people are really great at producing video and editing video and also being on video. That, to me, does not matter almost at all. What matters is the ability to connect with an audience, period. And if that's 20% on YouTube and 20% on podcasting and 20% on blogging, and that's what works, great. If that's 100% blogging or 100% podcasting or whatever, you get what I'm saying. Like, building an audience is the cornerstone of any great online platform. I'm going to put that on a t-shirt.
Yeah.
Building an audience doesn't matter where it is. I don't care where it is. I don't care if it's only Instagram. I don't care if it's only Snapchat. If you have people that are willing to give you their attention, which is a hard thing in 2019 and 2020, more than ever before, more than 2018, which was started in 2017, wherever you can get and hold people's attention, your audience's attention, that's valuable. And too many people right now are still going into the trap of, it's got to be a blog, or it's got to be a podcast, or maybe I can dabble in different things. I would love for less people, I would love for more people to think of it less like that and think of it more as, I don't care if I do one podcast one week, one blog the next week, one YouTube channel the next week, one email to my list the next week, one tweet takeover, I don't know what people do
Twitter
on social
party,
media. Whatever.
Yeah.
Audience. Your audience. Find the audience. If your audience is only going to read your blog, that's one thing. If you just have the podcast audience and you kind of figure that out, that's one thing. But I'd love for more people to have this mindset of, it really doesn't matter so much as figure out where your audience is and where they will give you their attention.
What about this idea? Oftentimes people will say, I have this really great content on this platform, but I want to be able to maybe also reach an audience that's not on that platform. So like people who don't listen to podcasts might read blogs, or people who might not read blogs watch YouTube videos, and that's like their thing. Do you think that it's important and even valuable for people to use the same content on several different platforms? Or do you think that that's something that should be special to each platform?
I think, okay. Two things came to mind when you said that. One.
I'm going to start with two? Okay, go ahead.
I could start with whichever one you want.
Just go ahead.
We'll start with number 2. I think the important thing is to make sure you're still utilizing the preferred formatting of a different medium. Like, I'm sorry, podcasters who want to put their podcast on YouTube with just like no actual images, or just like a still image, right, with just audio over it, that's not YouTube content. You might be trying to reach people on YouTube, and maybe you are reaching some people, but I'm sorry, that's not YouTube. Sorry. I think it's important to make sure you do the content right for the platform. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. That said, if somebody's willing to do that, and that takes a heck of a lot of work in a lot of cases, that is something I do, by the way. Actually, here's a good example. We'll come back. A good example, I didn't pioneer this by any means, but I started it and I found that it worked for me, was doing extended show notes for my podcast. So I started with just like the 3 takeaways that I got from the episode. I would record it immediately after I was done with the interview. I was thinking about it. It was still fresh in my mind. It just got done. I would record a little bit of audio, usually like 5 to 10 minutes of like, here are my top 3 takeaways from this episode. And I was like, this is super easy for me to just bang out in blog post format. Because it's already, not only did I just do this interview, but I also recorded like this little 10-minute segment, and I can just listen to that like 3 times through and I'd be done just writing. So like 1,000 word, 1,500 word-ish show notes worked really well for me. Like I picked up some SEO juice. People liked coming and reading and listening a little bit. And my audience is a lot of skimmers. Like they're not word for word readers. So that worked really well for me. So to answer your question, I think it's worthy of experimenting with. As a great marketer would probably say, definitely worth experimenting with.
Well, and I love your point of maybe don't take the podcast audio only and put it on YouTube, but maybe consider taking a video of you creating that audio and putting that on YouTube instead.
That's one step better, in my opinion.
So it would be more YouTube content if you actually have people in a video format. And that's an easy fix, right? That's a super easy fix. You turn on the camera while you record your podcast.
Yeah. My argument is, why do people go to YouTube? It's not, well, a lot of people do listen to music on YouTube, like in a different tab when they're working and whatnot. But in general, like if you go to YouTube, it's to watch something. No one goes to YouTube to watch a still image. If there were no audio, that would not make any sense. So do that. Have moving images. Even another step would be just having the audio, but then like a PowerPoint presentation over the top of it or something, like words, like something that moves and changes a little bit. So it's both visual and auditory. Is that the right word?
Auditory learning, yeah.
Auditorial. Close up. Yeah. Make sure it works for the platform. People don't go to YouTube to listen to podcasts specifically. Now, go look at like what Joe Rogan is doing for the Joe Rogan show. It's highly visual. He's got multicam, kind of like the setup we have here. It's great stuff to watch as well. So that's it. That's my spiel.
I love that, and I feel like there's so much that people can be doing. People. I almost made a weird joke.
It's late.
There's so many things that people can do to just maybe readjust or to repurpose what they have. I love repurposing. Repurposing is one of the best things that I think someone can do.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that like you can have a really great idea and then present it across different platforms, but making sure that you do each of those platforms well.
Yeah.
Right? So I love that. Well, thank you so much. You were going to say something.
I just thought of one more additional thing.
Yeah.
So Brian Harris from videofruit.com, 10K subs, like one of the OG email list building guys from like 5 or 6 years ago. He's kind of one of the first ones to come on the scene and like teach people really well. Something he taught forever ago stuck with me when it came to writing a blog post. This is what he did. He was terrible at sitting in front of a blank page and going from like, I have this idea of something I want to write about to boom, finished blog post. He was terrible at that. And so what worked for him was grabbing his iPhone, holding the voice recorder app and just talking through it for like 4 or 5 minutes, just max, like not a whole lot. And then he found that once he did that, he almost didn't even need to refer back to the audio. There was like weird antique telephone ringing or something. I don't know what that was. So my point was, when it comes to repurposing content, it could be beneficial to try out different ways of thinking through content or brainstorming content or outlining content.
Right.
Some people do really well on their podcast outlining it first, like in a Google Doc or whatever. Not me. That is useless for me. What I do really well is just talking, whether it's to myself or publishing on the podcast, and then listening back to that like just one time and I can write a blog post like you wouldn't believe. Like I
Right.
could just bang it out. If I didn't have the audio first, it would take me 10 times longer. Yeah.
Everyone has a different voice. Everyone has a different opportunity. And I just love that. So thank you so much, Pete McPherson.
You're more than welcome.
And where can people find you?
doyouevenblog.com. That's it. I spent a lot of time on my homepage. So if there is anything specific you would like help with, chances are it's there. I have my best podcast episodes about SEO, about Pinterest. I have like my newbie guide there. I got my list building guide, monetization guide. I got my world-class newsletter where I spam people 7 days a week. Totally joking. I don't do that at all. It's a great newsletter. I stand by it. It's right there on the homepage, doyouevenblog.com.
Awesome.
No.
All right. And we'll see you later.